Good morning, my friends. We're live. I was making sure my mic was muted because I was swearing, I was cursing. Hey, everybody. This is Anytime with Ken and Alden. Alden, it's a Friday, and I forgot to press local recordings again.
Is that why you were swearing?
I was swearing to myself. It drives me crazy. God bless the world. Hi, everybody. It's Anytime. As I said, Alden, save me. Save me, Alden.
Look, man, we are a two-man team. Anytime Incorporated, Anytime Enterprises, it will grow. But as of right now, we'll cut each other a little bit of slack because people don't realize sometimes how many players go into even just a talk show. It seems like it doesn't require a lot, but it's quite a bit of button pressing involved.
A lot of button pressing, and I for those who have been following my show, 20 Minutes of Coffee with Ken, right here on this channel, live for channel members. You've been following along with the fact that I have a back injury. I have a chronic back injury from my pro wrestling days, and it flared up, and I can barely move. I can barely sit. I can barely stand, and it hurts when I sleep. It's just going great, so I think I'm going to blame that for now. How about that?
I think that works. I mean, eventually, maybe we won't have to worry about these mortal coils, and we'll just upload ourselves. But I think we're a ways away. I don't think the Elon Musk monkey brain chip tests have gone well. So,
I had a conversation with my friend Matt Key, who I'd love to bring on the show. We were having a coffee this week, and he was talking about the big problem with AI is eventually the rich folks will just use it to make themselves better, literally, like physically elite. And the rest of us will be the waste, much like the comic Lazarus, if anyone's read that. We'll be the waste. And they're going to take that event. Forget job loss. They're going to be like, look at my bionicle arms. I'm never going to age. I can sleep. My brain goes forever. And we're going to be over here going, please, sir, could I have some more? Is that a doomsday thought?
No, but I hate to say it, but I think it might actually be. I mean, we've got so many different looks at what the apocalypse could be. Your Mad Max, your Hunger Games, but I really do think it will be as basic as guy refused to get old, wanted younger wife, so he decided he would use technology to do it.
There you go. That's what it's about. Hey, for those who are watching the show for the first time, you're live here on the Ken Napzok YouTube channel. That's me. I don't like speaking in the third person. That's reserved for Deion Sanders. But this is the Ken Napzok YouTube channel. We're live here. But we have the Anytime with Ken and Alden channel. We are online at Anytime On Air. Check us on socials there. We're trying to build out that channel. If you go over there, you'll find my Taylor Swift rant, defending Taylor, attacking sexists and misogynists and more who don't like Taylor at football games. It's over there. You can watch it if you haven't seen it. We are having some fun already. It's going to be, though, not a fun... Well, I don't know what kind of conversation it's going to be, Alden. Our main topic today will be when when politics change relationships. Families, friends, otherwise.
Yeah, it's certainly not a stressful topic. It's not anything that anybody has sleepless nights over or moments of sheer panic. But it's exceedingly relatable, like jokes aside. It's something that when you brought it up, it was instantly like, oh, yeah, of course we have something to say.
Yeah, we got a lot to say, and follow along for those watching live. Before we get into our first segment of the day, I do want to shout out some of the people who watch us live. Matty Morner is here. Matty Gunner says he'll still whoop Elon.
Please.
There you go. I like Kingsport House. Says Alden's shirt reflects his personality. It's got flowers. It's got Boba Fett. It's got flair. It's you.
But it's still black at its core. Everything else is just peppered on.
It's still goth in the middle. And Joseph Thomas is here, out of work, sick with COVID today with the bright side. Can finally catch us live. That's great. Joseph is works hard in this town, and known him for a few years. So get better, buddy. But I'm glad you're here watching. Alden, I think we need a win. And before we get to the news, we have our segment that you always answer for us. What Ben Affleck are we?
Ben Affleck, usually a very comedic photo. This time we're going in a different direction. In the spirit of awards season, this is Ben Affleck during the Best Picture for Argo. And this speech became sort of not infamous, but talked about because he made it a point to say marriage is work, which is not usually what people throw in addition to thanking their spouses, his then spouse, and the mother of his children, Jennifer Gardner, who is one of my favorites as well, independently of that. He talked about that. But the reason I bring it up is because not only is it award season, I just think it's so Ben Affleck, but also so relatable in general to have this moment of triumph, really the pinnacle of the industry in terms of awards, but they still didn't give him actor or director. It's almost like so that I think is so this industry, all facets of entertainment. We really like you, but we don't like you that much. And
I don't like you.
We like you in a broad sense, and we will give you almost a pat on the back. It just feels so Hollywood that you could have the best movie, but nothing you did was the best in it.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the writers of the films still struggles for respect in the sci-fi fantasy world, huh? I really, you know what I love about this? It's an award-winning photo, like literally, it's an award-winning photography moment there, and he still didn't quite get past the finish line. And I always feel on the outside looking in. I always feel like I'm in the race. People like me. People root for me. But there's no way I'm going to win the race. And I just have to live and exist in that world. And I think Ben, where he is now, has found his way forward in that. I'll be Batman. Don't get all the respect there. I'll do this. I'll do that. I'll have some fun. I'll refine some love after a marriage that didn't work. And we all don't give him enough credit. But that's why we're here, Alden. That's why this segment exists.
Absolutely. Like, Ben Affleck has an Oscar for writing and an Oscar for Best Picture. But he shares one of them with Matt, and you always hear people say, well, Matt carried that script, which, probably true. And then the picture, it just cracks me up. And it is true that you can do X amount of things. Like, I feel like I had a really good first few years in my professional career, and I sometimes still feel like it hasn't started. It's a very weird feeling.
Oh, I've had a good 25 years, and I think I'm at my lowest point. So it only gets better, Alden.
Yeah, I guess back injuries incoming.
Well, that and a lot of other things, too, as well. I heard YouTube's just a great place to try to exist on. The other thing about Affleck, too, you mentioned, like even the Good Will Hunting stuff, there was Colin Quinn had a good joke about their writing team, and I forget what side he came down on. It might have one of them was just lifting weights like curling, while the other one was doing the actual work. Was the point of Colin Quinn's joke? But the rumors that still go around, they still pop up every now and then, that the script was actually written by Kevin Smith, that he actually wrote it. That was actually his script, and how true? I don't think there's a ton of truth to it. Maybe he gave some notes, maybe helped, maybe he gave him some weed to get through the night. I don't know, but even then, Affleck is always searching for full validation, or at least I don't think he is anymore. I think maybe at one point he might have been, but now he knows who he is.
Yeah, it's true. And I think, Bradley Cooper will now be in that category, just like how Leo for years didn't have the acting Oscar. And of course, these are the epitome of first world problems.
Yes.
But it is interesting. I mean, we can all relate to being in, but not being quite in.
Yep, that is it. Well, that is our Ben Affleck of the day, which means now it is time for us to slide over to a little roundup of the news today. And I got to say, this is one of those weeks where I finished this late last night, and I already feel it might be outdated, but that's the point. All right, here we go. Here's a look at some of the headlines making the world spin this week. And spin and spin and spin it does. It already seems like ancient history thanks to our 24-second news cycle, but the week began with old Bloody Fingers Trump winning the Iowa caucus, which for those keeping score at home is not a primary, it's a caucus. And what's a caucus? It's what people call Donald Trump after he leaves the room. It was no surprise that Trump won the caucus. It was expected because the GOP is a cult, and this is their version of what Jared Leto is to everyone on that island in Croatia. Trump took 51% of the vote and 20 delegates, while Ron DeSantis finished with a distant second with 21%. Nikki Haley, who thinks racism was solved at some point in our timeline, finished third with 19%, while Vivek Ramaswamy both dropped out of the race and finished fourth, kind of like my dating life in the early 2000s. That's right, this is the wild, fun Iowa caucus. The caucus saw the lowest turnout of voters in 25 years, thanks in large part to a dangerous storm that was considered life-threatening to the Republican voters who most likely don't believe in any sort of climate disaster. But those that did turn out dropped their votes in brown paper bags being passed out, safe and secure. While Trump's win was record-setting, it's fair to say that almost as many people that voted for Orange Fuhrer turned out to not vote for him. There's some interesting stats on that, but that's just a small ray of light for those rare, sane Republicans to hold on to while the rest of them chant, monorail, monorail, as Trump moves his grifter act over to Shelbyville. One final note, while the Iowa caucus is important in terms of being an early assessment of the presidential race to come, no Republican winner of the caucus going back to 2008 went on to become the Republican candidate. So Chris Christie, there's still a chance, buddy. Get back in there, take those swim trunks off, put on a suit, and jump back in the race. The United States government was once again facing a shutdown with a Friday deadline looming large on the calendars of all your elected officials. But once again, in a last-second deal, the partial shutdown was avoided. Speaker of the House Mike Johnson gets a gold star on his Bible verse memorization chart and one on his Let's Make a Deal with Those Demonic Democrats chart. That's got to be a special chart. The stopgap deal means the next big deadline for an actual budget agreement will be in March, and the whole issue was kicked down the line like a lonely tin can on a dusty road. And hey, it's nice to know the government manages its budget like I do, trying to get one more crappy loan so I don't have to live on the streets until at least the spring, hopefully the summer. The deal easily passed in the Senate, and by the numbers easily passed in the House, so it all moved on to Biden's desk, where he'll sign it into law before his milkshake drips onto the parchment. However, Mike Johnson has found himself in the crosshairs of those in his own party looking for any reason to frag him in the back, and we don't mean that in a good way, like the way Mike won't let himself enjoy. The measure passed in the House 314 to 108, as I said, easily, but the Republican representatives passed it by one vote, 107 to 106. The Democrats saved the day by a 207 to 2 vote. Members of Johnson's party aren't happy with the agreement, I guess meaning they're okay to shut this all down. And the Freedom Caucus, the ones that got Kevin McCarthy fired, they posted on X.com, which is 2 X's away from the websites Mike Johnson's son uses a burner phone to access, the statement, this is what surrender looks like. Currently, it is not looking like anyone will make a move to remove Johnson, with Representative Tim Burchett saying Johnson is just playing the cards he's dealt. Phew. Close one, Mikey. Good thing Tim Burchett is too busy trying to use government money and time to prove that UFOs are actually aliens and demons trying to mess with anyone taking grainy, shaky cell phone footage. I know this is all complicated stuff, it truly is, but I once got demoted for ordering too much pizza for a watch-along YouTube show. But these clowns will keep on keeping on. All right, let's hope that budget is balanced. Perhaps feeling left out of all the simmering, dangerous tension in the Middle East, Pakistan launched precision strikes on Iran Thursday, claiming to hit targets that were, quote, terrorist hideouts. This was in response to Iran attacking them on Tuesday, and what Iran said were attacks on an Iranian militant group operating in Pakistan. I think this is what the Spider-Man pointing at other Spider-Mans meme is all about. China asked both countries to show restraint and, quote, avoid actions that would lead to an escalation of tension. Now, please don't mind us as we gear up to invade Taiwan. All right, I may have added the last part, but China stepping in here is like your friend at the bar who likes starting shit, telling you to not stare down the dude who just stole your drink, girlfriend, and your country. Despite the retaliation from Pakistan, Iran said it was committed to good neighborly relations with Pakistan, meaning with friends like these, I'm going to become a prepper and move to a secure bunker. At least Israeli Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu, I don't care about saying his name right, Netanyahu probably has a reasonable view of a two-state solution after he's done clearing out Hamas in Gaza, and things will eventually calm down. Oops, like my mess up there? Nope. This week, Netanyahu told the world that he rejects the idea of a Palestinian statehood in a day-after-the-war scenario, and that he has told pretty much his last remaining allies, us, that he disagrees with the American position on the issue. No word on what we plan to do with that information, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see how much Trump agrees with Bibi on this issue in 2025. That's the news. Let's discuss a little bit more of it here before we move into our main segment there. Alden, going back to the beginning of the week, the Iowa caucus thing is fascinating to me because I still, after all these years, and I even read about it this week, I don't know the difference between a caucus and the primary. I just know this is somewhat important, and this was a statement that was not surprising, but at the same time, just kind of makes you shake your head,
The best aspect to me of the Iowa caucus is just conceptually, if you showed the photos to somebody and said, "This is how an essential decision for an entire state of human beings is being decided," they would
Yeah.
laugh at you. It's a ridiculous process in terms of actually physically how it happens and
Yeah.
how things are submitted. Yeah, it. But then on the whole, it's just like this is a cult, right? Like as
Yeah.
we've said, as we other people have joked about, this is a literal, by some definitions in sociology, a death cult. The pandemic and the lives lost couldn't shake
Hmm.
it. The admitting on tape to being a sexual assaulter, admitting on tape, couldn't shake it. The allegations and convictions in court couldn't shake
Yeah.
it. The money stuff can't shake it. They will never walk away. The
Yeah.
cult's personality isn't just the entrance music of my one time favorite wrestler. It's also a real thing that happens.
One
Like
time favorite.
this is a real thing,
Yeah.
and we're
Yeah.
witnessing it in real time. And I think that because we got away from it from a little while in a direct way,
Yeah.
we maybe shook it off, but it's a coming this
The
year.
train, the train is a coming, and yeah, and this is yeah, the cult term could be. I agree with it fully, but like it could be considered insulting to your normal folks that you know in your life and I know in my life who vote for the R's, and I think I'm okay with it being insulting because it's clean up your house.
Mhm.
We're all having to deal with this, and there's no convincing. I like watching those videos too of Jordan, what's his name, Jordan Kepler
Mhm.
going to rallies and let's interview the Trumpies and let's kind of make fun of them. Yeah, I
Yeah.
watch those too. They're entertaining, but you might be cherry picking some from the crowd too if you want to be a devil's advocate to those segments. But also, you can't change them. They're all lost. You got to focus on what we can change and who we can pull in, and the independents and the people on the cusp. And those I will say there are some sane Republicans out there who are just shaking their heads. They don't know what to do. Bill Kristol's one. Joe Walsh left the party essentially, but he won't go full Democrat because he just can't bring himself to.
Mhm.
But also he shakes his head every day online over this stuff, and it just feels overwhelming. Along with all the other things, it just feels like a train we can't stop.
Yeah, I think it is utterly and completely laughable that people like DeSantis and Christie and Haley and any of them even think this is worth the time, the money, the effort. There has never been a more clear, at least in my lifetime, example of we are all in on this one person. There's nothing that any of you can do. You are
Hmm.
all competing just for airtime. This is an extended ad for their
Yeah,
careers. That's all it is. It's
yeah.
going to be Biden Trump. We knew it was going to be Biden Trump. There's just no earthly way it changes. And you're right. You need to focus on the people that you've lost. I mean, Biden's
Hmm.
approval ratings are at '06 to '08 Bush levels right now.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
Get those people back because as I've said to a lot of friends off air, it was not Joe Biden and Kamala Harris that beat Donald Trump. It was Joe Biden and COVID-19 that beat Donald Trump. And you don't have the wave of look at how they've bungled this anymore. That's
Are you
not a factor.
are you suggesting we start another one?
I'm suggesting we go to the secret labs and make COVID 20 plus platinum
Uh,
COVID Hulu bundle, all of it.
that's that's amazing. Yeah, no, I agree with your stuff on what you're saying there about this stuff. And yeah, we for a while we want to make sure we're like we're not going to discuss Trump a lot here on this show because we just don't. He's got enough airtime. But
Yeah.
this is important stuff, and you weren't necessarily mentioning us when you talk about that, but it's easy to kind of forget, right? It's easy to kind of put in the rearview mirror if you don't want to engage with it, and the trial going on. I mean, I think we now a judge has said, you're a rapist. Like, like that's
Yeah.
it's insane. It's insane. But we have to deal with the insanity. Sometimes the insanity, as I said earlier, can get overwhelming there. Yeah, the budget stuff is what it is. It is it's above my pay grade. I will admit that. I don't know how any of that stuff works, and I'm not just talking about now. I'm talking in the past. I've tried to, I've read this week all about what's going on. Read all about the vote and the deal and the Ukrainian support, the border stuff, and it's all complicated. It is truly politics. This is what people don't like about politics, but it's necessary. But it is also it's a bit of a clown show again as well. That's why we put that picture up of Marjorie Taylor Greene, Margie,
Hmm.
and Tim Burchett. It's like they're holding this sword over Johnson of, if you even negotiate or compromise for one little blip, we're going to cut you. And that's just doesn't seem functional. But here we are.
Yeah, that's the party that they've become, and that's the way that things work. There's all these fractures and everything, but they will always fall in line. And even the people that are of normal brain brain function, their brain hasn't rotted or melted, that shake their heads, they still won't outright fight because they want, when the smoke
Mm.
clears to whatever new form the party takes, they still want to be there. They're not going
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah,
fully jump over. Like, it's not like they're going to break ranks and like
yeah,
endorse Joe. It's just not going to happen.
yeah. Not little gear shift change. And we got the Middle East stuff. I'm watching it. I read it every day, just like I try to read the Ukraine stuff. And it's again, speaking of overwhelming
Yeah.
and painful and tragic and frustrating and all those things. I don't want to put that on the shelf. If you want to discuss anything about it, we can discuss anything about it. I'm not surprised by Netanyahu saying that. That's all the stuff.
Yeah.
But I want to go a little bit. This is, like I said, total gear shift, Alden, as we close the news conversation. I mentioned the stuff about Burchett and the aliens and the jokes and the UAPs and the UFOs and stuff. How much do you follow that stuff with what's going on in the government about that? Not the online chatter about jellyfish stuff, which was disproven already. Not about the chandelier alien disproven pretty
The
much already.
jellyfish.
I'm talking about the people in our government. And
Yeah.
again, if you believe in aliens, I don't have a problem with that. I'm open to the conversation. I'm just saying this is a guy who is using government time and money, Burchett, to hold hearings, to want transparency. He keeps saying transparency, but he believes that Nephilim are walking around in Miami malls, and that's the people on that. Help me.
Well, that could be true. That could be true. But yeah, no. But in all seriousness, I don't follow it nearly as much as you do or as other people do. When it rears its head into big news, like when there was that whole thing about Mexico saying that they had a corpse or whatever, like when it comes around, I will read up, but I'm
Yeah.
not. I couldn't tell you which politicians are the ardent supporters or truthers or anything like that.
The don't worry about it. But yeah, the Mexico thing was they discovered this week or maybe last week, that they're essentially dolls. They were made up, and they were
Yeah.
presented in front of the actual government of Mexico. And we're not too far from that here. Like, we're not too far. The people who were on that hearing are all grifters and have been working in the circle. And look, you and I, we could have a lot more views if we just said it was all real, or we're just seeking answers, and we'd have a lot more people watching our show. But I hate to put water on that fire. But then I see stuff like this, and it's like, here's Burchett trying to act normal in the government, and he's over there trying to use our funds to find demons on Earth. And look, I'd love to find some demons on Earth. I could probably point you in a few YouTube channels where they are, but why he's doing it, I don't know. I was just question. I was just wondering how much you followed it.
No, but it is interesting. I mean, to see that
Yeah.
again, these are people that get chosen by other people, and that should scare
Yeah.
us. That should
Yeah.
scare us that this is
Yeah.
what his concern is, and yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Andy in chat is saying, the government has not admitted to aliens, UFOs, or whatever at all. The panels are a huge waste of time and taxpayer money. And Andy, that comment is absolutely right. They're right there. It was a big waste of time. It also has to do with the defense contractors. A lot of them, it's a small group of grifters. A lot of them are tied into defense contracts. David Grosh, Lou Elizondo, all that stuff too. So, anyways, maybe we'll dive in one time. We'll bring on some people.
Oh yeah, we could do a full tinfoil edition of any time.
Yeah, we
And
might.
yeah, I mean, we know enough people.
We do.
Different
I'll
color
convince-
scheme. We could do
Yeah.
a grainy black and white color scheme.
Yeah, and I think Jared. I'll bring up this comment. He wants to maintain the pilled Q vote that is embedded in the MAGA movement. I think that's some truth about that as well. All right, we're gonna dive on in here to the conversation at hand. When politics change relationships. So you have a lot of great questions, a lot of things we're going to talk about here. And for those watching along live in chat, and for those watching later on or listening, I want to start here. Mileage may vary. Mileage may vary with you on what the word family means to you, what it means to you now, what it means to you then, friends, relationships. It's none of this is easy. I am not someone who suggests that it's easy or that you even should just simply toss away friends and family over quote unquote differences. I think it though goes beyond that, and we are in, dare I say, all unprecedented times. And I have gone through some unprecedented changes in my own life, and I don't talk to a lot of people I used to. I'm not close to them. Some of them were just done. We don't communicate. And I have family members that meant a lot to me, that kept me afloat here in Los Angeles when I needed the help. We don't communicate anymore because of differences. And there was not, and here's the thing too, it wasn't a blow up. It wasn't a flip over the tablecloth and Thanksgiving dinner and storm out.
Yeah.
It just stopped. It just stopped. So that's the starting point. Mileage may vary. Some people, no, stay with the family's family. I'm not a super strong family guy. I like my family. Still communicate with my parents. Have a sister that I don't talk to a lot, but we try. And other people are inseparable from their family, and I like that for them. So, anyways, that's the starting point. What's your starting point with the conversation of politics changing relationships?
Yeah, I guess that point about where are you on the scale of being a family person is important. Like everyone's going to have a different level of bandwidth to go into this. Everybody is going to have a different foundational core of how they were raised or whatever, and it's
Hmm.
definitely difficult. I mean, I've been in my last relationship that was my last long-term relationship was 5+ years, and her family was split down the middle. Dad's
Hmm.
side this, mom's side this, and it caused her anxiety and fear and just guilt, tons of guilt. Like if I
Hmm.
don't just shut up and make nice, then I'm a bad daughter.
Right. Right.
And I
Right.
am lucky to have not had that personally, where my mom and I pretty much align on everything politically and socially, and usually have my sister as well. But I've seen it firsthand, and I've been a part of it, and I've had to witness these dinners, and I've been at the Christmases where stuff gets said that's just not okay, and people are made to feel bad, and people end up in tears, and I've seen all that, and I am just generally,
Hmm.
um, you talked about how you and your sister like aren't that close, like, but you try. I'm a
Try.
person that if I feel like we get to that point, I'm not even going to.
Hmm.
And it's sometimes it's out of malice, and sometimes it's not. But I'm at the point now where I don't. I want to choose peace for myself anyway, and I'm not a like, but blood is so important. No, it's not. Not to
Yeah.
me. So I already have that. So if I then find out, like we have a cousin who is a very quote unquote pro lifer, and said some really not cool things about women and Roe and like all this stuff, and I was just like, okay, I'm done with that guy.
Yeah.
And you guys can talk to him if you want to, but I don't care that he's my cousin. That doesn't means nothing in
Yeah.
terms of the way he's treating others.
Yeah, and there's some great comments coming in here that are already actually helping to shape our conversation. Our good friend Molly Damon says, never was that close to my family, so it's easy to separate myself. Though she does that, it's a lot harder with the in laws. Michael McCarcel, I've definitely, quote, ruined holiday dinners because one family member said some awful shit, and I'll do it again. But actually, where I was going next, again, Andy has an insightful comment, as they always do. I could live about politics, and politics about zoning laws, where to put red lights, stuff like that. I can't agree to disagree on human rights issues. And I love what you're saying right there, Andy.
Mm-hmm.
Agree to disagree is okay when it comes to pineapple on pizza. I'm pro, others are con. It's okay when it comes to tax laws here, some of those more nuanced conversations. I mean, even fine if you ever want to have a conversation about border security and safety, something I am for, and most people I know are for. But how to discuss it, as we said here on the show before, like what's your goal, where are you at? But that was my family thing. It went from hey, we got we should look at the southern border and see what's going on, and it turned into I'm happy people are in cages when his son's girlfriend had family down there detained, right?
Yeah.
And the kids in cages thing is a buzz phrase, so I'm putting that up there. But and that was the moment where it was like we're not talking about politics anymore. We're talking about
No.
morality. We're
Yes.
talking about that. So the divide is not political in the way of you liked Ike and I didn't. It is now who you are as a person, and that's where the divide starts to happen for me.
Hmm. Yeah, well, we all know Dr. Jones liked Ike. according to Crystal Skull, and that's a man you could converse with. That's a studied professor.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
Mm.
extremely difficult even to articulate sometimes to
Yeah.
family members why morality is intrinsically involved in these decisions and in these points of view. Um, it got to the point sometimes with certain people that I used to associate with, or that I've tried to explain things to, like I have a family member that I very recently was just like, we're through. It's not the cousin that I just mentioned, but it was in the wake of some loss and some different things and the way certain people were treated. I was like, I'm not associating with that person. But I remember a conversation we'd had where this person who's married and has two
Hmm.
daughters was talking about how, well, when I'm at work, it doesn't really matter to me that such and such is a Trump guy. They're mostly Trump guys. And I'm like, oh, so you can count those guys amongst your friends? Because they don't respect your wife or your daughters. and
Hmm.
and that's that to me is the reality, is that people have a really hard time imagining their own in a situation. I don't think
Yeah.
that most fathers that voted Trump because he's a businessman would leave their daughters alone in a room with him.
Yeah.
And that sounds maybe reachy,
No,
but it's
no,
just real.
no, no, no. That's 100% real. Not to my life, to a close friend of mine's life, who during the 2016 to 2020 era, his dad kept saying, I get it, but oh man, what he's doing with my money right now." And eventually he left that. Eventually the insurrection on January 6th turned him, but it was a little bit of like what you were saying. It was like, great, so happy for your money. But what
Hmm.
about this class of people? What about these? What about that person? What about me? What about my daughter? And I think that's part of the conversation. One thing I want to say too is when I say it's not easy, like for me, I've always been my entire life the center of a lot of different friend groups. I've been if there's a Venn diagram, I'm in the big overlap. And if you were
Hmm.
at my house for parties, there was a lot of different type of people, a lot of different type of points of view. I had my foot in two lines of work, and so I don't just simply pride myself on that. That's just who I am. But what has changed dramatically in the last couple of years is once I started seeing the world completely different. Once I started looking back at history and seeing some of the truths that were not clear as they should have been, I
Hmm.
really changed as a person. And the people who I eventually left behind, and in some cases they disassociated with me, it was hard for them to understand. And the big point around it is, and I remember saying this on GPA years ago, like at some point you look at someone who is very important in your life, very important, and you realize that the only thing you have in common is the past. You do not have the future in common. And that is kind of a breaking point. But the thing is, Alden, they don't understand it. One day you were fine with me, Ken, the next day you're not. The fact that they posted something anti trans on Instagram doesn't register with them is the problem. They're
Yeah.
like, we could still get a beer. I don't understand. And I'm trying to find empathy for them while still leaving them. I'm trying to be nice and pat them on the head in that case. And there's other cases where you can't. And I'm not
Hmm.
talking about that. I'm talking about my experiences. And just they don't understand. And I sometimes don't know what to do with that. And that's the guilt you were talking about, where I feel like I'm the problem.
Yeah, and there's a certain level of indoctrination and abuse and victimization that happens within these circles, where it's like you can logically understand why that version of them was created, why those views were forged, and that's really sad and disappointing sometimes. I mean, many of us in the chat, I'm sure, have dealt with the religious side of this, the religious angle,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and that is in a way sad when you can look at that person that you're leaving behind and
Right.
look down this metaphorical road, whatever it looks like in your mind, and see them, and
Yeah.
they're standing there, and they shake with fear, when they
Where are you
say, I
going? Where are
think
you
this
going?
because we
Yeah.
will be punished, or
Yeah.
because it's against God, or we're going to hell and all that. You got to cut it off and choose that peace, but at the same time it's like it's a miserable existence where
Yeah.
they live under constant threat of burning, that they think. And I
Yeah.
can understand that to a certain degree, at least logically, in that it makes me sad to see them not live freely, if that makes sense. But
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. And having that background and understanding that a lot of that and moving, and I was never fully comfortable in that world. I was always on the outside of that too, but I had a lot of close friends there. Yeah, and again, that's part of the lack of understanding. And I don't mean that as in the sense that they just don't understand. They have their worldview. I believe they're entitled to it. That's the other thing too. I don't know the difference. I think you and I are about the same. Like, if I have a difference with someone in this kind of big arena, I'm not trying to change you. I'd love you to change with me, but you can go hate pineapple on pizza if that's what you want. I don't care, but you got to understand that this is we're not connected anymore,
Hmm.
and I still think there's a lot of like they think I need them to be like me, and that's where they go to your differences, just simple differences. We all should be different. We should all
Yeah.
get along, and it's like yeah, absolutely, we should. This is not that case. Politics are morals.
Mhm.
Politics are how you look at the world and decide the best way to take care of the least of us. And this is what you decide. This is what I decide. We're not talking tax laws like Andy was saying,
Yeah.
but they can't understand. I'm trying, and I struggle with the empathy. As I walk away from them, I do feel bad.
Yeah, it's when they immediately get defensive, right? And like you said,
Hmm.
the small it's just small differences, or my favorite, which is oh, so I thought you were supposed to be the tolerant one.
Yeah.
And that's my favorite. That sends me into a rage, Ken.
It
Like
sent me to rage
the
last year. Yeah.
the paradox of intolerance is so important for people to understand.
Yeah.
We have to be, not just we can be, we have to be intolerant of intolerance.
Yeah.
And people, they really think they get you. They think they got a kill shot on you when they pull it out.
Yeah, they think that's they've solved the riddle, the logic puzzle. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
with you, and it is and that's the thing. There's no explaining it. I've tried to explain it, but there's no explaining of no, I can tolerate you having a different opinion than mine, but when your opinion becomes law, that is intended to hurt people that are not you and are friends, like friends of mine,
Yeah.
right? Like, no, I don't have to tolerate your idea. Our pal Joseph Scrimshaw has always said this. Like, I can have empathy for the person. I do not have to have empathy for the idea or the policy or the law, whatever it is. And that's a conversation. I just feel like you can't win. I feel like they know. In some cases, Alden, I think they know they've lost that, but it's a buzzword they get to hold on to.
Mhm.
Oh, you tolerant lefty, you can't tolerate the fact that I want all trans people to be blinked out of existence. Oh,
Yeah.
you can't lose. You can't win.
And a lot of it too is based in the idea that views, many of them oftentimes conservative views, are foundational and strong and powerful and the backbone of a healthy society. But they, at the same time, when you poke them at all, are fragile and so close to destruction and moral panic and pandemonium and
Yeah,
hell is right beneath us. So it's like,
yeah,
which one is it? They don't know, because so
yeah.
much of it is motivated in fear. So then when it gets to the
Fear.
point where you have to make that decision of, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to choose. I love a lot of the comments that we have here. I'm going to choose situations like Maddie. I felt nothing from detaching myself from my Tory sympathizing family because his friends and him raised each other.
Yeah,
That's so real. When you make that choice, Molly, found family all the way, there has to be a level at the same time too of accepting, I've chosen found family, I'm moving on, and with that will be a lingering pain, sometimes of no resolution, because we've
yeah,
talked about we've discussed this empathy, looking back, understanding, but a big thing that I think both of us have experienced and people we love have experienced is that sometimes there will not be reconciliation or a
yeah.
final fight or anything. It just crumbles before you know it. And then you're looking at Facebook memories or Instagram stories or whatever, and you're like, oh yeah. And it
Th-
hurts.
this started. There's a great comment want to bring up from Joseph a little bit ago. This conversation started. This idea popped in my head to discuss on the show this week, and I'm sure we'll discuss it again. It's because I don't go into Facebook often, but when I do, and I usually maybe like once a day, I'll check it. Just I want to
Mm.
make sure I haven't been hacked or so or who's got a birthday. Is today PJ Campbell's birthday? Let me check on Facebook. Happy birthday, PJ, by the way. And I was kind of almost laughing in a sad, bittersweet, tragic way that all of my Facebook memories on one day were with people that I don't communicate with anymore. And some are just things change, friend group changes, things happen that are outside of political and all that stuff. I've got that. We've all got that. But we're talking close friends, brothers, people that I fought alongside with, people that I fought for, who fought for me. And it's because of this stuff. It is because I used to be someone different and I'm not. And that's when I'll bring in Thomas's comment. Love my family, but politics has become a really touchy subject since I moved away from the conservative beliefs I was brought up on, because I began to pay attention for myself. And that's where I'm at. I have a conservative background any way you slice it. And I still like the ideals that are in the Bible, words from Christ. I still like them. I still can lean on them. And I wish other people would too, and actually lean on the real intentions and the real meanings. But I never questioned much because I didn't have to. You and I are different, not just different eras, but different perspectives on life, right? From who we are and how we were raised. I didn't have to question anything. So the moment things started to be questioned for me, I always go to the Tulsa race riots appearing in Watchmen. I was one of the people that didn't even watch the show. I saw the hoopla around and was like, I don't know what that is. And when I discovered what it was, oh my God, if I didn't know this, if I didn't pay attention to this, what else am I not paying attention to? And it affected me in a way. That's why pop culture is important. I had a friend, I was talking to a friend the other day who was raised in Texas. And he goes, oh, I was taught about the Tulsa race riots, which, I think is more appropriate to call it the Tulsa massacre. And he would agree. And he goes, I was raised about it, raised with it. And all the knowledge was wrong. It was downplayed. It was, oh no, it wasn't a big deal. There was no planes used in it. Well, that's crazy. And that wasn't true. So to Joseph's point, and maybe I went to a bigger way with it, but that was a big change in me. And that's when my family didn't change, and they're still good people. And that's the thing too. My family, they're good people. And it's harder for good people to comprehend the changes or why I've gone through these changes. And that it becomes touchy, then it becomes fragile, and then it becomes fractured, then it becomes broken. And that's where a lot of us are, at least right now. So anyways, I like that comment, Joseph. I'm with you on that.
Yeah, it's powerful and it resonates. And I think there's something universal too about the pain of leaving home in like a figurative sense, of realizing that your origins don't necessarily align with who you are. That's really difficult to navigate. And I think a lot of people, the reason why a lot of our friendships are so strong and powerful and why, because you and I are two people that have pretty big friend groups and things, and well curated ones at that, is because you need some reminders that it's not you. There's nothing wrong with moving on. There's nothing wrong with trying to choose peace. And because guilt is such a powerful factor, it's such a powerful motivator that it can be hard sometimes, I think, for a lot of people to make any of these decisions. Because family is so sacrosanct and family has to be the thing and it's above all else. But that after a while, it's like you have to be able to admit, that's part of adulthood, I think, is being able to admit that your family is fallible.
Family's fallible, and families can be great. I got some friends I know who I love hanging out with their families because they're wonderful. They're not perfect,
same.
No one's are, but and they've suffered loss in them, but they're wonderful to be around, and you can't change all that. But yeah, and yeah, and I, you want to check yourself, and I think that's too. When I started to change, like it was a sliding scale of what I would accept. First it was like, well, I'm going to mute them on social media. I just got to block them. But along the way, I think it's important, and I think it's okay to say, hey, keep checking yourself. Make sure you're not jumping the gun. Again, outside of specific cases of abuse and anything like that. I'm putting the big stuff on the shelf right now for this conversation. But in this, what a lot of us are experiencing in chat, I do like checking myself along the way. Like, I want to make sure I'm not being the asshole here. That I'm doing it for reasons that aren't just about me, but about the situation and about just life in general, whether they understand it or not. And when you keep going, nope, this is still got to do. I'll give it a shot. I'll hang out with you. Oh, nope, you quoted Jordan Peterson again. All right, we're out of here. Like, it just it builds and builds and builds. But I don't mind checking myself along the way because it's a big loss. It is a loss for both.
It is a big loss, and I think part of the discussion has to be as well. Something else that I wanted to touch on is, all of these decisions and conversations about who to quote unquote keep and who not to, is based for me in how much do your principles and your beliefs matter to you, and how much do you base who you are around them. And I've gotten to the point, for better or worse, where I think I said this in like a moment of like just clarity and stress to someone recently, where I said, if I don't vehemently stand by the things that I say I stand by, then do I even exist? Am I,
Mm.
or is it
Mm.
just a character that I make,
Yeah.
and put forth? And you have to, as well as check yourself for empathy and humility in some way. You have to be able to, I think, say, how much am I actually acting in accordance with what I say? Because if we can make excuses on the things that we believe, then it gets easier and easier. I almost feel like it's like the Batman thing of like,
Mhm.
why doesn't you just kill the Joker? Well, if I do that, then I'll never stop. And
Yeah.
so I feel like if I look the other way once, when
Yeah.
relative X is saying transphobic, racist,
Hmm.
homophobic,
Hmm.
misogynistic things, or backing it with merchandise, votes, money, social engagement, whatever it is, if I look the other way on that, then I've already allowed a crack in.
Mm.
And
Mm.
that can also weigh on me a lot,
Mm.
the
Yeah, I get
feeling
you.
of like having to be militant about it,
Hmm.
for lack of
I
better
get you.
phrasing. So that's hard too.
Well, you got a lot of rage in you. We know that. It's
I do.
militant's a good word for you. Yeah,
I
and look,
do.
and time has a way of healing wounds, and time has a way of changing things. You are younger than me, and you have a lot of a future in front of you. Where yeah, sometimes there are some differences that. Nah, that doesn't mean as much to me. Or that moment, that blow up we had, that's a thing in the past. But there are these big things: who you are, like you said, what defines you, what you truly believe, what are your convictions. That's hard to go back on, and that's hard to just put it water under the bridge. And as we start to wrap up this part of the conversation, and much more to have on this, if my
Hmm.
back wasn't absolutely on fire right now, maybe we'd have a 3 hour episode about this and bring in other folks who experienced it. This is just the scratching the surface of the conversation, but it is this long held thing, and you experienced it too. Our generation difference is not an effect here of in a polite society, you don't talk about politics, religion and money. And there's a part of that where I understand where it's coming from. Again, even I don't. If I go out to dinner, I don't immediately start pulling out the conversation topics, religion and politics and all those kind of things. Sometimes I just want to have food and talk with friends and talk about the football game. I understand that, but it is, I think, that kind of view, and I don't know how it is in other parts of the world, but that view here, I think that swept under the rug so many differences that are catastrophic level differences that it exploded the last couple of years.
Hmm.
That generation upon generation of we don't discuss that here exploded in everyone's face 2015, 2016 on. That's a working
Yeah.
theory I have, Alden. That's what I should say.
Absolutely in agreement with that. I mean, we talked a little bit about it off air, and the thing I always go to is left-handedness. Where you look up the statistics of left-handedness, once it was allowed in schools, suddenly it spikes because
Hmm.
people aren't being told that it's satanic, or the left hand of
Yes.
Lucifer, or they're not getting
Yes.
rulers cracked on their hands. They're not being forced to be right-handed and learn to write that
Hmm.
way. It
My mom was
immediately
that.
spikes up.
Yeah.
And so when people tell you now, wow, there's so much more dissent, or there's so many more queer people, there's so much more autism, there's so much more, you guys are so liberal with the way you discuss money. You're just asking each other about yeah, we were always that. We always
Hmm.
had these things. We always wanted to talk about these topics. We always felt this way. It was always there. You just had repression. And it's so contradictory to the
Yeah.
idea of family, that these people that in the same breath will say it's us above everything, blood above
Hmm.
everything, this household above everything. However, you can't discuss these things here. It's like, well, then is it
Is
is
it?
it together?
Is it? Is it? Is it? Is it? Yeah. Yeah. My mother, who her and I have come to some agreements, and again, it's my mother. If I have the ability to maybe keep in touch with my mother, I have a different experience. But we had some real big battles over the last couple of years. But anyways, all that to say, like she's one of those people you're talking about. In the 1950s, school teachers and nuns and destroying her hand with a ruler because she was left-handed. That's insanity. That's
Mhm.
insanity. That was the belief. It was the left hand of Lucifer. That was real,
Yep.
and we've pushed past that, but we've changed, and she still accepts it all. I mean, she doesn't think she's possessed because she's left-handed, but that didn't stop in a lot of ways. You know what I
Right.
mean? You're possessed because you're left-handed, or you're going to hell because you're gay. It's the same muscle, and
Yeah.
it just frustrates me that a lot of folks they can't connect the dots there. That stuff was real.
Yeah.
She's,
They don't
you know.
take the logical A to B of it all and apply it
Mm-hmm.
to other situations. They have a lot of people I think have a very like they and a lot of it is a survival mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
So like I would imagine, and you can tell me, that your mom, if that was brought up to her, she would be like, "Yeah, that was so weird. It wasn't a big deal about left-handedness, and like,
Yes.
like it didn't make sense that they did that." But then if
Uh,
you took the same logic and applied it to different problems, she would say, "Well, that's different." And
yeah.
it's like, yeah, it might be different in severity,
Yeah.
but the way that we try to control each other isn't right. Like your mom would never crack your hand with a
No.
ruler for left-handedness, I'm sure, because she didn't like that. So
There's some great comments I want to get to here as we read this, but you're thinking I'm just now we're sharing personal stories here, which is great. But it's like I grew my hair long after high school, right? And I know a
mhm,
lot of Screen Junkies fans remember my last gasp of hair that I had there. But I had like long hair down to my belt, and I was 18, 19 years old. And my mom loved it. She thought it was great. And we had moved into a house, long story short, and an older guy from our church was there helping us, like in his 60s, 70s type thing. And
mhm.
he was very nice to me. Came in, I'll never forget. He offered to buy. I'm going to go down to Burger King and get a Whopper burger. You want a Whopper burger? He was very nice, but he pulled my mom aside and said, I'm very sorry, and I understand where you've been, where you're at. I understand the problem you're facing." And she was like, "What are you talking about?" And she goes, "Your son has long hair. My son did this in the 70s, and we ostracized him a little bit, and we prayed for his sins to go. I get where you're at." And she was like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
no problem with long hair, and that was in the 90s, and so that system's still in place. That system, that kind of feel it is place. Those words Andy said, those people were still there. Your grandma's sister who lived as a spinster, your uncle and his longtime roommate. You've always been here. We've always been here, but the language was coded and we were hiding. And Jared stacks on that. Stack on consider the fact that the very existence of queer people, POC, women, etc., and their issues are, to quote Andy, zoning laws to people who aren't affected by these issues. Yeah, I agree with that as well. And
yeah,
then the zoning laws themselves, the red lines, are also part of the issue
yeah.
that aren't. That's part of the self-discovery.
It's hard. It's
Yeah,
really hard to know that there are, people in our comments right now are regulars and some new folks and people
yeah,
watching that everybody has their version of this and everybody has to process it. And but I
yeah.
guess like not to be like so generically like motivational poster preachy, but you're not alone. You're just not.
Yeah.
It feels very, very isolating, but the experiences of that are so universal. Um, and all it takes sometimes is just to let someone know that you've been there and that you'll be there cousin, brother, sister,
Hmm.
whatever it is, in the way that they need to be. And again, we're pretty fortunate. Like there have been people that have had it infinitely worse. I only had my mom's side, and outside of death and a couple people, I've got pretty much still all of them. But it's hard.
Hmm.
It's hard. To stand by any of this is hard. I mean, this is personal relationships. We could do an entire other episode on professional relationships. We could do an entire other episode on how it's like I can't ethically do that job and this will hurt me. um
Yeah.
these
It's
are
yeah.
all intimately
Yeah.
connected.
Yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. I think there's a line between, hey, I happen to be at a comedy club when a problematic comic is booked there, there's that versus I'm going to continue to choose to work closely with someone who I know was a sexual harasser of my former female coworkers. There's a lot to discuss there too, and the
Yeah.
stance to take. And I'm someone who's had this relatively easy, charmed life. This back problem is the worst problem I got right now. And so part of the changes I have is me knowing my position. Recognizing what the word privilege truly means, that it was to me, wallpaper. These issues, gay marriage was this issue on a wall I could vote for. It
Hmm.
wasn't an issue that would define or perhaps destroy my life. But to know that now I can help those or try to be on the side of those whose lives can be destroyed by this stuff, it's the least I could do, and that's been part of the growth too. And thank you all for wonderful comments in the chat. We love our community here. This show continues to grow, and we stand on our convictions to keep doing any time in the face of
That's
YouTube,
right.
making it difficult and all those kind of things. So, anyways, that's my final thought. Any final thoughts for you, Alden? We'll move to a little bit of entertainment news.
Yeah, my final thought is that maybe your back wouldn't hurt so much if you hadn't grown your hair out long, and now you're being punished.
Well, clearly that's not an issue now. Clearly not an issue now. But yeah, maybe that might be it. Maybe that.
This is
Yeah.
long-term punishment.
Yeah.
But
Well, I'll tell you what. My back. If I had not gone into independent pro wrestling and put on was part of a show in a bar where alcohol and sin was served, then I wouldn't have hurt my back. There you go.
alcohol and sin. They were serving sin on a 2-for-1 special.
2 for 1. A stack of onion rings and sin at Yankee Doodles in Simi Valley. Oh, it was a time. What a time. Good conversation there. It's our main topic. We're not done yet, though. We've got it's entertainment stories. Sometimes it might be light and fluffy, but Alden also, it also is overwhelming and dark as well.
Yeah, so I wrote a few stories in our notes, and a couple things came up in the last 10 minutes before the show. So I will place those as need be, and I think the first one can be placed right here at the top. So originally, we are going to touch on Condé Nast. I usually use the word merging. I said gutting Pitchfork and reassembling a zombie version of it inside GQ. Amongst many layoffs that happened with this, including editor-in-chief Pooja Patel. Now, at the same time as this, Sports Illustrated, there were licensing fees that weren't being paid, I guess, to the tune of $3.5 million, and they've lost now the license to publish, and their group, as well as the New York News Guild and the Sports Illustrated Union, are going to fight this. But essentially, right now, Sports Illustrated doesn't have license to publish, and they've laid off everyone. So Sports Illustrated and Pitchfork, what do these two things have in common? Being literal institutions of their industries.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned Pitchfork. Yeah, that's because that's still relatively new. We're looking at 20 years or so. I told you my personal connection to it is back in the day. I wrote for TinyMixtapes.com, which was kind of a competitor to Pitchfork in the early days, but we were blown out of the water in terms of competition. Once again, I was attached to the not winning team, and Pitchfork kind of just became what it is. But Pitchfork was new, right? It was part of the new media at the time, at the turn of the century, but it's become an institution. The music industry's changed so much, but that had remained. So that kind of blows my mind. And the Sports Illustrated one, yeah, you're right, it's still developing. We'll see where it ends up. But as of right now, after 70 plus years or so, right, Sports Illustrated's done. That's an American institution, whether you like sports or not. It is an American institution gone, and that's part of the changes happening, part of the disruption. Next week, we are finally going to have that disruption is destruction conversation with Ken Plume of Open Chat, Force 5, and all his wonderful shows. He's going to come on. We're going to discuss this thing that we talk about every day, he and I, and you and I talk about of, any new tech promised always seems to bring kind of destruction. And now we got, and now it is beyond, but the Sports Illustrated thing isn't just simply tech, I know. It's mind blowing because numbers of the economy, it's looking good. Unemployment's good. I'm having a struggle finding a part-time job right now. I'm having a struggle surviving, and I'm not alone. And it's a weird. There's conflicting headlines out there that we're all being caught in the middle of. Which is a great Paramore song. Put a pin in that one. Anyways, you're trying to get my reactions, and my mind is blown that something like Sports Illustrated would go.
No, it's as ridiculous a sounding a story as Rolling Stone just went under. It's like, how is that even
Mhm.
possible? How does it get to the point of mismanagement to the level of a payment is missing, therefore this entire legacy publication must die?
Yeah, it's just
It's insane.
I think too. Again, this has a little bit to do with tech change. Like I don't, I used to be subscribed to like 12 magazines in like the late 90s, right?
Hmm.
I'm subscribed to zero and haven't been for a decade plus, and I'm okay. I get it's changed. I miss going to newsstand and picking up magazines. I kind of like a good magazine. Sit on the couch on a lazy Sunday. That's great. I'm totally here for the change, but it just seems like in the change, everything's being destroyed. I just feel I've lost my footing. I don't know how to even comprehend.
Yeah.
There like the fact that this is going to be a weird example, I know, and please make fun of me, but when Playboy announced that they were like no longer doing magazines, it's like
Mhm.
I never had a Playboy subscription. I honestly never did. Kingsport Cow, don't claim I did. Um, but what is this now? And there's a freedom into building the new world, but I think we're leaving so much humanity behind. We're leaving all these reporters. Sports go on, but the reporting of it doesn't go on, or at least in this fashion. It's a scary thing for me.
Yeah, Playboy, no physical issues. EW, Entertainment Weekly, no physical issues. I
Yeah,
grew up I grew up always getting Game Informer. I always got WWE magazine. I
yeah.
always got Movie Magic. None of those
None of those.
exist,
None of those.
and it's definitely heartbreaking. So yeah, we'll continue
We'll continue
to
it.
touch on Sports Illustrated as we get into next week because it feels like it's going to be a nasty couple weeks,
Yeah, yeah,
possibly
yeah.
some litigation. We'll see how it goes down.
Yep.
Um, Other things, other sad stuff. But don't worry, guys. The entertainment news will take a positive upswing. Shows canceled. We have. We'll start with Schmigadoon at Apple. I never watched it.
Mm.
People liked it. 2 seasons done. Rap shit at Max done. Our Flag Means Death at Max. The broke my heart
Mm-hmm.
done.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would note one of those shows celebrated for its diversity, for its queer representation. Our Flag Means Death, Rap Shit, representing Black voices, bringing them to Max. But David Zaslav can't have those shows going on Max. They can't be spending money on those. Of
He,
course, they got to go.
I do want a list of his shows, of the shows he's canceled, because I want to be careful not to accuse him of something. But there's truth in the stats, and truth in the numbers, and who he might be politically, and with
Yeah,
some decisions he's making. I don't have that information, so I'll try to tread carefully and
we'll
lightly.
try to tread carefully. I will
But
just say, also not to make
it's
a
yeah,
mathematical allegation,
yes,
in
yes.
terms of big choices, without even having to do the research. Batgirl was him, and that
Hmm.
was Latina Batgirl. Pirate show canceled, gay pirates. Comedy show canceled, black women. It's not. I'm not saying it's a pattern, but I'm also not saying it's not. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like my yeah. It's like it's I don't know because he could probably produce some business reasons for it. Whether or not we agree with it or not doesn't matter. But it's like the in the video I did this week about the Taylor Swift situation with Tony Dungy. Yeah, I wouldn't have drafted the first openly gay player in the NFL. Not because he's gay, because it just would be a distraction. Oh, okay. I get sure. I guess you get to hide behind that shield. There's a lot of that going on at Max with Zaslav.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's very disappointing. In particular, I haven't watched Schmigadoon or Rap Shit, but in particular,
Hmm.
Our Flag Means Death. It's still going to be there,
Yeah,
hopefully. For now, we don't know anymore
we
if they
don't
will
know.
be.
Yeah,
So definitely go check out the 2 seasons while you can. David Jenkins created it. Taika Waititi executive produced, did the
yeah,
pilot, and starred. And Reese Darby, like that crew. Um, One of the funniest shows I've ever seen, and pure joy. It makes you feel really, really good.
yeah.
So updates as things continue to get canceled and decided on, we will continue to provide. We don't often talk about gaming news, but Indiana Jones and the Great Circle was unveiled,
Yeah.
and I have mixed feelings on it. I'm definitely cool, great. I
Yeah.
love indie. Xbox exclusive is annoying to a certain
Uh,
degree.
my
uh,
game. Yeah.
yeah, it's
It's on
very
PC. It's on PC as well, right? But and I do have a.
hopefully, yeah.
I don't game on PC. I
I don't
can't do it.
either. I
Whatever.
don't either.
I had a Commodore. I can't game now on PCs.
Yeah. So we'll touch on it as it comes. Maybe by then one of us will be playing it. We'll discuss it, but
It it
it's
uh,
fun.
it looked the trailer's solid. Troy Baker
Mhm.
is Indiana Jones. Troy is great. I get it. There's some other choices that would have been interesting to me too, but the trailer's great. Yeah, I don't understand the politics of video games in terms of exclusives and everything and how that works and why they feel that works. I'm sure they have some research to back that, but yeah, my head hung a little low because we've never had a great Indiana Jones game. There's
No.
some people like the Atlantis one, but and the first I'll say this, the first Lego Indiana Jones games was spectacular. But
Yeah.
one like this in this modern age of gaming, that's exciting. And my head literally went, oh, I can't play it.
Yeah, and the other two things I will touch on aside from that is I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining about it being set between Raiders and Crusade. But what I am going to add is, can we please somehow, if it's not the game, can we start to explore the post Crusade, pre Skull? Like that feels like such a layup.
Oh yeah,
OSS,
yeah.
Indy, everything that happened after these missions that are alluded to in Skull, and it just feels like my concern. And I was talking about it with friend of the show, Charlie Ashby. My concern is that when I play this, if I do, it will feel like a less cool Raiders and Crusade. It's like,
Hmm.
here's the third story of him punching Nazis in the desert, but it doesn't have Sala, it doesn't have Marion, it doesn't have
Yeah.
Henry Sr., it
It,
doesn't have, you know,
yeah.
it's risky. It's risky in
I
its
get you.
safeness.
No, it's safe, and I think that might have been some of it. And Jared points out in chat, it's exclusive because Microsoft owns Bethesda. Yeah, there you go. Corporations, who owns what? Oh boy, there we
Yeah,
go. There's that feeling. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it seems like it was familiar. I understand what you're saying about being safe, but that might not be a bad thing here. But maybe the next time around, I'd love to
maybe. Yeah,
explore that world of indie that you talk about. Hell, I'd love a young indie adventure too. Give me a Sean
absolutely.
Patrick Flannery version as well. So we'll
And
see.
I'm
We'll
sure
report
you'll
back.
talk about that more on Force Center as well, um, over on that side, because you guys do
Yeah,
incorporate Indiana Jones into your
we do.
coverage.
We do.
Talk about how weird it is that it'll be mostly first person. That's a choice.
I can't do first person, so that's another problem.
So it's going to kind of
Damn.
basically, I don't know if you saw, but it's going to traversal when you are running around and looking for things, third
Mm,
person. When
okay.
combat begins, it's going to zoom and switch to fists and whip, and
Uh-uh.
that's going to be odd.
I'm
Uh,
okay. Thanks,
and
then.
then, and then, lastly, this is not an official segment yet, but we're going to talk about Paramore news with Haley Williams, the official rock star of Anytime with Ken and Alden.
That's right. That's
That
right.
is officially
Great.
unofficial. She hasn't
Yeah.
agreed to anything yet. But we're discussing two pieces here. There are rumors, no comments yet from them. It's in the Sun, it's in the Independent, a couple other places, of them re-recording their old material as their 20-year relationship with Atlantic Records is seemingly at an end.
Yeah, it
Haley has
is.
her own publishing company called But Father, I Just Want to Sing Music, which is a very funny name
That's a
uh,
great name.
for a music publisher. And then also at Paramore News, A24 that did the remastered Stop Making Sense Talking Heads concert doc. They're going to do a tribute album, and it is being led by Paramore covering Burning Down the House, which is a perfect song for them, I think.
Yeah. Oh God, I can't wait for that. This is exciting, man. I'm in my Paramore era, right? I didn't experience it 20 years ago. Also, I saw someone tweet this, and I agree with it. It's kind of insane that a like 14-year-old girl was signed to a 20-year record contract. Like that's
Yeah.
that. But yeah, JMB says they're gonna Taylor Swift their songs. Yes, they are gonna Taylor Swift their songs. And I know Haley and Taylor are friendly, right? So it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I like this idea. The music industry's changed, as I keep saying, it's changed dramatically. But one thing that's good about it is bands and artists have a little bit more control and a little more control getting things out there. I'm intrigued by that. I'm intrigued by that cover. Burning Down the House is perfect for that, especially with stuff they
Oh,
put out the last couple of years.
there's a little itty bitty, if you haven't seen the teaser, it's a tiny little drop of what it's going to sound like at the end.
Yeah.
And oof, yeah. And they've had such a groove and everything. We'll talk about it more in a different episode, maybe when the track drops. But
Yeah.
your relationship with Paramore has been so wonderful
It's
because
just the best.
I think it was maybe summer last year, maybe earlier last year. You hit me up and we talk all the time, and you were like, you're a Paramore fan, right? I was like, of course. That's like one of our queens growing up was Haley. Like that's some of our core songs and big albums. Like that era of like Paramore, MCR, like when I was in middle school was so essential. And you discovered it and did the deep dive
Yeah.
on the band history, the lore, the different sounds, the albums. Like,
Yeah, and I'm one of the I like the later stage stuff. I did
yeah,
not love a lot of like I that, but that's why I wasn't into them back in the day. Misery Business, all that stuff back in the day, because I just
right.
didn't like that. The dare I say harder, but the emo, a little more hard rock and emo stuff. I
Yeah.
just it wasn't. I was listening to Neil Diamond's 12 songs. That was my favorite
That's like a
album of
little more like
2005.
pop punky
Yeah,
emo, and then like, but like after laughter
yeah,
and and this is why, and like these
but
eras.
yeah, I love this is why. Yeah, but yeah, it was funny. And that's the thing. That's what I love about music is there's so much music out there, and you could have missed an artist. You can go back and rediscover an artist. You can go back and rediscover the Talking Heads, as a lot of people should do. And for me, it was here in 2022, 23, 24, being like, "Hey, Alden, who's this Haley Williams girl dancing in all my like algorithm stuff on Instagram? Why am I
Mhm.
seeing this? Like she's doing this little caught in the middle dance, and I had known the band, but I just hadn't spent the time, and it's been fun. And they are the unofficial band right now of Anytime, and Haley's the unofficial rock star.
It's true. So very excited for both of those things. Definitely a person that we both look up to creatively. Very cool, very respected, sort of like a
And
musician's musician.
and sorry, I cut you up, but in regards to Haley, there's someone who has changed, whose core
Yes.
beliefs still might be there, but her relationship and interaction with them and who she is and what she says has changed. And that's been fascinating to track as I've dug into the lore of the band as well. So it's into it.
Absolutely.
All right. We're getting ready to get on out of here, as we often do. We end the show with our pop rockin' word of wisdom to leave on, sponsored by my show, Pop Rockin' Radio, which will very soon in February be a syndicated radio show. So radio stations have already agreed to pick it up. So I'm working hard recording episodes, but still going live on Mixcloud. So support the show and help yourself discover music that you might have missed and listen to the favorites. One of my favorites is Liz Phair, and I'm leaving us with this word of wisdom because this is a song that is now 20 years old, over 20 years old, and Alden, it still haunts me. It still just cuts deep in my soul. It's a song called Red Light Fever. Lyrics saying, lying wide awake in the dark, trying to figure out where you are, always going nowhere, afraid of going somewhere, and somewhere's a place in your heart. Sometimes when I think about you, why you're always running away, sitting in your car, changing who you are, and drowning the thoughts of your life in the music. The scared the lights will turn green. You have to be seen. You'll be like anybody else. Scared the lights will turn red. You're stuck in your head. You can't even commit to her. How are you going to get through the year? That song for so many years has represented this stop and go in my life where sometimes I'm afraid of success. Sometimes I'm afraid of the hard work of success. Sometimes I just want to stop. And other times
Mm.
I've been stopped and I'm confused. And I am at 48 now. No, 47, turning 48. Wow. Sometimes the years just drift on by and you don't even count the numbers anymore. I don't know who I am in some ways, but I know who I am in so many other ways. And I'm just confused and scared, and I don't know what's next. And I'm trying to dig in. And sometimes that green light is more fear inducing than the red light. So that's where I'm at. And I always go back to La Liz and her music, and that's one of my favorites. So I don't know if you youngins, you TikTokers all didn't appreciate what Liz Phair did for y'all.
God,
But
oh,
that's
being
about
referred to as a TikToker, it made my skin crawl. No, I'm not. No, you are the
it.
bard of the Liz Fair mythology
Hmm.
in my life, where it's your stories about your relationship and seeing her way back, and then seeing her very recently,
Yeah, yeah,
and the anniversary show, and just it compels me to see like how much she's affected you. So I will have to do the deep dive, but I love these lyrics and yeah, sometimes
yeah.
looking forward is fearful, but like being able to verbalize like she did that you are a work in progress is its own form of power.
We are a work in progress indeed. And we are out of here today. We'll do some Q&As, no super chat questions to get to today. So we appreciate you all hanging out with us as we move forward. Next week, we'll have a guest, Ken Plume, coming on the show to talk about disruption, the thing the tech bros love to talk about. Oh, we're disruptors, how it's actually destruction. And so many things have been destroyed, are being destroyed, and we got to watch it. We got to discuss it. We got to deal with it head on while also embracing change and the future. That's my final word. Alden, say goodbye, and I'll get us out of here.
Everybody, this weekend, do me a favor. Do us a favor. If there's a journalist you love, if there's a website you love, if there's a magazine that even exists, buy it, support them, tell someone about it, and try to be a light as things are getting really tough.
There you go. Be a light. We'll see you next time. Bye.